So this is Wayne, the one and only genius prince, a young guy whose brain could probably power a whole country. He's got money, status, and everything he could ever want, but laziness runs in his veins, and the guy just refuses to take any responsibility until one day, boom, something happens that flips his whole life upside down overnight. So if you're curious to know what goes down in our hero's story, smash that like button, drop a cool comment, and now let's dive into the tale. Our story starts with the most famous prince in the Milky Way, Prince Wayne, heir to the throne of the Natra Kingdom. He's holding a meeting with the kingdom's officers, and his head is spinning from hearing about all the power struggles in the palace after the sudden death of Emperor Arthwood. Everyone's telling him the same thing, that only he can save them from this mess since he's the genius of the palace and all that. Of course, they all start hyping themselves up, acting like they're the foundation of the kingdom, and if it weren't for them, his father would have been doomed, and that everything works perfectly because of them. They say, if we all work together, everything will be fine. And since they're just a bunch of old men living off cliches, they totally buy it. But what they don't know is Wayne can't stand them. In fact, he can't even stand the whole kingdom. He hates the whole responsibility thing and literally wants to sell the kingdom to anyone who'll take it. Like seriously, who's got time for that headache? He's above all that nonsense. Now here's where his assistant comes in. Her name's Ninum. She gives him a reality check the moment she hears he wants to sell the kingdom. She's like, you can't just say that even as a joke. But the problem is, he's not joking. So she tries to motivate him, telling him to stop being lazy and actually do something before everything goes downhill. But Wayne's like, come on, you and I both know how broke this kingdom is. Then he starts ranting. We're just a tiny country with less than 500,000 people. Most of our land's just mountains and rocks. No resources, no money, no industry worth mentioning. That's why everyone looks down on us. We're weak, one small push, and we're off the map. And to make things worse, my dad's sick, so I've got to handle all this crap now. So the only logical plan? Sell the kingdom and disappear. But first, I gotta make it look valuable, because the more it's worth, the better price I'll get. Then I can live like a king somewhere else. No thinking, no headaches, just vibes. Then suddenly his sister Flanya barges in, saying their father's getting better and can even walk again. He's like, that's great news, but right now, there's something more important. Turns out, the neighboring Marden Kingdom is preparing to invade them, which basically means they're heading for war. We find out Marden used to be just as broke as Natra until they discovered a gold mine. Now they're acting all high and mighty, planning to invade nearby lands. But their king ain't that popular. He's got corrupt officials everywhere, ignores every mistake, and his stupidity's dragging the whole country down. So he's looking for an easy win to distract his people, and unlucky for them, Natra fits that role perfectly. Flanya tells Wayne, you're not just gonna let them do that, right? She overheard the soldiers talking about how they have to prove themselves worthy of their prince. Her bodyguard, Nanaki, confirms it, saying they were all fired up and wouldn't back down. Wayne just smiles, broken inside as usual. He can't believe they're actually excited about a battle, so he decides to go along with it, planning a small fight first, then a peace treaty right after. He gathers about 6,000 troops to fight Marden's 7,000. Right before the battle, the chief officer tells him to give a speech to pump up the soldiers, because even though they're ready, you can clearly see they're nervous. It's their first real war, after all. Wayne steps up and gives a killer speech. He tells them Marden's underestimating them, but he believes in their courage and strength, that they survived brutal training and have unmatched bravery. He says, today's the day we prove them wrong, the day we fight to rewrite history. Meanwhile, Marden's commander is laughing at them, calling them northern peasants, and saying there's no way they can beat his elite troops. Then the battle begins. Marden's forces charge in hard, aiming for Natra's center to surround and crush them. But even when Wayne sees their plan, he doesn't change his formation. He stays calm. The two armies clash, and the crazy part, Natra starts winning easily, even though they're outnumbered and less experienced. Within minutes, Marden's soldiers are begging for reinforcements, entire squads getting wiped out, and their right flank collapses completely. Wayne's stunned like, how the hell are they this weak? Are we fighting soldiers or school kids? Then his officer reminds him of the deal they made with the ambassador of Arthwood Kingdom, where she promised to share their military knowledge and supplies to strengthen Natra's army. It sounded impossible, but but she actually agreed, which means Natra's now using the most advanced military tactics on the continent. But their progress doesn't last long. The soldiers start losing morale. It's their first real taste of blood and chaos, and the horror starts sinking in. Martin's general notices that and orders his flanks to push in and crush Natra's weakened center. Then he personally charges forward to kill Wayne himself. Wayne sees disaster coming and tries to escape with a few men, but suddenly stops. Turns out it was a trap. Flanya and her forces ambush Martin's army from the hills, raining arrows on them. She charges in like a beast, slicing through everyone around, and orders the enemy commander to surrender. But he's like, no way, I'm surrendering to a woman. And in that exact second, she chops his head clean off. She tells one of her soldiers to put the head on a spear so everyone can see it. And just like that, Natra wins the battle. Now all the officers are hyped up, talking about invading the whole Martin kingdom next. Meanwhile, Wayne's dying inside. He knows war isn't that simple. You need plans, logistics, preparation. But if he says that now, the officers might turn on him. So he decides to give them an impossible mission, like, let's seize their gold mine. It'll solve all our money problems. He figures they'll never agree, cause attacking without intel or rest after battle would be suicide. Then they'll drop the whole invasion idea. At least that's what he thought. But nope, they're blown away by his brilliant idea. They think he planned it all along. And before he knows it, they're off to capture the gold mine. So Wayne's stuck again, forced to think of an actual plan. As usual, he tries to dodge it, but Ninum corners him and forces him to focus. He says they need to gather intel about the mine's defenses and strike fast before Martin recovers. She's skeptical, but he insists, saying there'll come a moment where the army hesitates, and that'll be his chance to convince them to retreat. Of course, his plan fails again, and by the end, his army ends up capturing the gold mine successfully anyway. Episode 2. So, Wayne decides to take advantage of the situation and gather as much gold as he can. He calls the guy in charge of the miners and gets shocked when he finds out the gold's almost gone. But the King of Martin didn't know that, so he's furious, seeing the mine theft as an insult to their pride, and he's dead set on getting their right back. The finance minister suggests gathering 30,000 soldiers under General Darude's command, but the foreign minister instantly objects because that would leave their borders wide open. Still, the finance minister's confident no one will notice the troops being pulled since they'll take the mine back fast. A week tops, he says. Yeah, right. Sure thing. Genius. Back to Wayne, who's frustrated because their victory was useless and he's thinking of pulling out. But if he retreats now, it'll put his armies and the kingdom's honor on the line. Then suddenly an idea hits him. Pressure Martin and force him into a peace treaty. Lucky for him, they don't know the mine's gold is running out, so they'll probably try to buy it off him too, meaning he can still make a profit and not leave empty-handed. So he starts reinforcing the defenses because he's sure Martin will attack and attack hard. And yeah, just a few days later, Martin's 30,000-man army shows up. Wayne's head officer tells him it's best to retreat since they can't win against such a huge force anyway. The army will just take the mine back in the end. But Wayne insists they can hold them off for a month. If we last that long, he says, we'll protect our honor, and Martin will realize retaking the mine by force isn't worth it. That's when they'll beg for peace. So, instead of running, he orders his army to fortify. When General Darude sees that, he thinks, these guys are idiots. But still, he tells his officers, never underestimate them. We won't repeat our last commander's mistake. Then one of his officers starts buttering him up, saying, what's a dumb bunch like them compared to your skills, General? It's a disgrace they even think they're a match for you. Darude gets all fired up and starts the attack again, confident this time he'll crush them in hours. They just got lucky last time, he says, but looks like Wayne's found himself a fellow master of bad predictions, because once again, Martin's army gets shocked to see Natra holding the advantage despite being vastly outnumbered. During the battle, Professor Flavia's talking with Wayne, analyzing the situation. He explains that the mountain paths are so narrow, Martin can't deploy all 30,000 men, only about 5,000 can engage at once. The terrain itself gives Natra the upper hand. Flavia wonders if Martin might attack from behind, but Wayne assures her that he's already baited them into fighting at the foot of the mountain, no climbing for them today. Even though Martin could technically build roads or use one of the 3 existing paths to reach the mine, Wayne's plan tricks them into thinking thinking brute force is the easiest way. So no matter what Darude decides, he's already playing Wayne's game. 3 days pass, Marden's army still can't take the mountain. Darude's furious, totally confused how a bunch of peasants are holding them off. Then his troops find an old tunnel leading straight into Natra's camp. Looks like the enemy uses it to escape or ambush when needed. Darude grins. If we use that tunnel and attack by surprise, they'll lose their terrain advantage. One strike and it's over. Sure, keep dreaming. That night they move in, chasing what seems to be a group of retreating Natra soldiers. But suddenly, the tunnel starts collapsing and Darude's men realize too late it was all a trap. Wayne had planned it perfectly to break Darude's spirit. He can't beat 30,000 men with only 5,000, but if he keeps shattering their commander's pride, the battle's already won. Finally, Wayne's plan works. Darude loses his temper completely. His men warn him that Natra also lost their escape route, so it's not like they came out unscathed either. Darude pushes forward anyway and manages to seize the first fortress. But before he can celebrate, Wayne leads a small team and burns Marden's camp to the ground. Then Darude hears rumbling and panics, thinking Natra's launching a full-scale attack. He recalls all his troops for defense, only to find out the rumbling was just rocks rolling down the mountain, another one of Wayne's traps. For 2 weeks straight, Wayne's in full control. Looks like his plan's paying off, and soon enough, he'll finally get to rest. Until Marden's commander shows up with a message from Darude, claiming his words represent the general himself. He tries to provoke Wayne, insulting his soldiers, but Wayne stays calm and asks why he's really there. The man says he came to offer peace, but under conditions, Wayne must withdraw, surrender all weapons, and pay reparations for the unjust occupation. What's next? You want billiard tables too? Obviously, that's not peace, that's unconditional surrender, so Wayne refuses. The envoy gets even nastier, insulting Wayne again and then goes too far, mocking Ninim, calling her just a servant, and saying it's shameful she stands beside him. Wayne goes quiet, too quiet. Then he smiles and says, "You said your words represent Darude's, right? Good. Then tell your general I wish him the best of luck." 3 weeks later, Darude finally snaps and throws everything he's got into one last attack, watching the battle unfold from his headquarters with total confidence, until a soldier bursts in, saying he's got a message from the commander, then tosses Darude's armor aside, draws his blade, and cuts down everyone in the room. The soldier drops his disguise. It's Wayne. Darude, panicking, screams for help, but all his men are busy fighting. He yells, "How the hell did you get down from the mountain?" Wayne grins, saying he used the old miners to dig a new tunnel parallel to the collapsed one, linking the mountain to the mine. And get this, the tunnel collapse wasn't just a trap, it was a distraction, so Darude would completely forget it even existed. That's when Darude realizes he's been Wayne's puppet the whole time. He tries to grab his sword, but Wayne's faster stabs him right through and says, "Ninim is my heart, and anyone who dares hurt my heart dies by my hand." Poetic, huh? Meanwhile, back in Orthood, the ambassador's researching Wayne and gets stunned when she learns he once attended the Imperial Military Academy, but all his records were erased. The Empire hid the fact that a royal from another nation outperformed their best students. She finally grasps how terrifying he really is. As for Natra's army, they're celebrating their second big win. But of course, Wayne's joy doesn't last long. Ninim breaks the news. The neighboring kingdom of Carfane took advantage of their war and invaded Marden's capital, captured it easily, and killed the king. Meaning, no peace treaty, no gold deal, and yeah, Wayne's back to square one. But for once, luck's on his side. Ninim tells him they've discovered a new gold vein in the mine. Wayne sighs in relief. Finally, maybe I can rest a bit. Then Ninim hands him a new list of duties. Wayne screams, "I'm selling this damn kingdom again." Episode 3. Wayne gets back to Natra and starts getting ready with Ninim to welcome the Imperial Princess, who's suddenly visiting them, supposedly to strengthen their alliance. But both of them find it weird that she, of all people, came instead of her 3 siblings who are actually fighting for the throne. When she arrives, Wayne goes to greet her with her guards, only to freeze in shock when he realizes she's there to propose marriage, and then gets an even bigger shock when he recognizes her. It's Ilum, his old classmate from the academy. Wayne feels like he's in a nightmare, screaming for Ninim in disbelief, relief. Turns out Ilum hid her identity back then, just like he did, and now he's sure she's not here just for marriage. There's definitely something bigger going on. So during the welcome banquet, he tries to dig for the real reason and asks why she'd want to marry someone like him, just a regular noble. She smiles and says he's selling himself short after all. He's been running the kingdom in his father's absence, and even defeated Marden, proving his courage. How could I not admire you, she says. She adds that her brothers tried to stop her from coming, but she insisted that's why she's got so many elite guards with her. Of course, Wayne's not buying it for a second. No way they'd send that many officers just to protect a young princess. Later that night, she complains about the cold weather, so Wayne sends her some traditional Natra clothes, 3 big crates worth. But surprise, surprise, when she opens them, she finds Wayne and Ninum hiding inside. He snuck in so they could talk privately, away from all the formal nonsense. During their chat, she admits she already knew who he and Ninum really were back in the academy. Wayne cuts the small talk and asks what she's really after. That's when she drops the bomb. She wants his help to take down her 3 brothers and seize the imperial throne. Wayne's stunned. He tells her she knows damn well Natra can't go up against the Empire. Ilum admits the Empire could crush Natra easily, but right now her brother's power struggle is tearing it apart. She claims the only way to stop total chaos is for her to take the throne, but no one powerful will back her, cause she's just a woman. So now, she's turning to her old friends. She's fired up, and Wayne kinda is too, but he tells her things are different now. He's no longer a carefree student, he's the crown prince, and he can't just agree to something that risky. Still, deep down, he knows she's lying about something. It's not like Ilum to ask so directly, plus, he's noticed suspicious weapons popping up around Natra lately, and he's starting to think she's involved. Meanwhile, Flavia's starting to feel uneasy about everything. She asks Nanaki to talk to Ninum, who reassures her, saying, even if Wayne gets married, he'll never abandon me. I'm like his sister. Flavia then asks what Ninum thinks about the whole marriage talk. She always assumed she'd be the one Wayne would marry. But Ninum shakes her head, says, it's impossible. She's a Flam, a race people see as servants of demons. Besides, Wayne already gave her the greatest honor possible. He called her his heart, and she'll always be that. Flavia then asks about her studies, and Ninum decides to have Wayne help her. Later, Ninum meets with Ilum and Fish. The 3 reminisce about their academy days, their team, and how everyone admired Ninum after she dueled a guy who insulted her for being a Flam and beat him. After that, tons of students respected her, and even a few guys started crushing on her for her courage. They also talk about Ilum's admirers, especially the Prince of Ankatal, who's been obsessed with her ever since meeting her at a party. He's been sending her endless gifts and cheesy love letters. She sighs, saying she hopes he'll finally give up once he hears she's staying in Natra. But Ninum can't shake the feeling there's something off about that story. Meanwhile, Wayne's helping Flavia with her lessons, this time about the empires that merged to form the current one. He explains how the eastern region, Garen, used to be an independent kingdom called Antgadal. Long ago, the empire invaded the south and started expanding, making the eastern nations nervous. They formed an alliance to surround and crush the empire, and they almost succeeded. But the king of Antgatal suddenly betrayed them and sided with the empire. That turned the tide. The empire destroyed the alliance and conquered the entire east. After the war, the empire punished all the eastern kings except Antgatal's, who was rewarded with noble land and the title Marquis, earning him the nickname the Deceiver. He eventually died, and his son, the second, Marquis, took over. Flavia asks if he's as great as his father, but Wayne says he's heard the guy's a tyrant, incompetent in battle. He might have inherited his dad's looks and ambition, but not his wisdom, and apparently he's not on good terms with Garen's deputy ruler either. Then one of the officers bursts in, interrupting their talk, reporting that they found suspicious weapons again. That's when Wayne's suspicions about Ilum get confirmed, and he orders the man to prepare a message, but doesn't say to who. Later that night, Wayne remembers a conversation he once had with Ilum back at the academy when she talked about changing her destiny through rebellion and war to challenge old traditions. She'd asked if he'd help her fight, but he refused. Jokingly, he told her, if you ever drag me into something like that, I'll probably try to run away, but if I fail, maybe then I'll help you. So the next day, Wayne invites Ilum for tea, and Ilum, knowing him too well, immediately realizes he's planning something or digging for information. The moment Wayne meets her, he realizes she's figured out that he uncovered her plan, that she actually came to stop a rebellion about to break out from the alliance states against the empire. Empire. What gave her away was the stash of Western-made weapons hidden in Natra, clear proof that the Empire was using Natra as a secret depot in case war broke out. Wayne then tells her he found out the Empire's weapons have been evenly split among 3 factions, keeping their power balanced and dragging out the struggle between the 3 princes, creating a perfect setup for rebellion inside the Empire. She tries to play dumb, saying she'd definitely have told her siblings if she'd known anything like that. But Wayne cuts her off. She did tell them, and they ignored her because she's just the youngest princess. Her political influence is basically 0. So, since she couldn't rely on her siblings, she decided to stir up one of the 3 factions into rebelling first. That way, she'd have solid proof to show her brothers. Eventually, lol, Elam admits defeat and confesses Wayne caught her. She says she used herself as bait to stop the rebellion because if it succeeds, the princes would be killed and she'd be taken hostage for ransom and the throne. The easiest faction to trick would be Marquis Anquetal, since he betrayed the alliance to join the Empire. He's probably desperate for more power. She figured she'd lure him in by visiting Natra, so his forces would attack to capture her, forcing Wayne to fight back and save the Empire in the process. But Wayne saw through everything. He'd already sent a letter to the Marquis, warning him to cancel his attack, and that a noble guest was visiting soon, basically ruining Elam's whole plan. Suddenly, Ninum bursts in, telling him that Gurnak, the Marquis' son, and total Elam simp just arrived, thinking Wayne's letter was an invite to help him marry Elam. The guy's hyped and wants to see her immediately. Wayne tries to calm him down and keeps him relaxed till dinner so he can think up a solution. Later, he vents to Ninum like always, but this time, she's furious. Gurnak was insulting Wayne all through dinner, and she's not having it. Wayne tries to calm her down again, and she asks if Elam's gonna try to ruin the banquet to push them into a fight with Anquetal. He says that's not gonna happen. Still, he knows Elam's clinging to her dream of ruling the Empire, and is probably planning to use this save the nation stunt to gain political support. But saving her homeland isn't enough. That's why she was trying to use Natra to make it look like they were backing her politically. Her plan, though, completely collapsed after Wayne stopped the Anquetal attack. Now she's flipping the tables she's gonna make. Gurnak realizes Dad's rebellion, get him to confess, and then help him crush the rebels herself. Problem is, she and Gurnak don't have enough troops. Wayne's sure she'll try to drag Natra's forces into this, but there's no way he's risking his army. Instead, he plans to help her manipulate Gurnak without involving his soldiers. What he didn't expect, though, was that Elam already knew his plan and was gonna force him to use his army whether he liked it or not. That night at the banquet, everyone gathers with Gurnak, and each of them's running their own little scheme. Then suddenly, Gurnak finds out Wayne's trained in swordsmanship and challenges him to a duel to show off for Elam. Wayne's stuck. He can't outright win because that'd humiliate the guy, but he can't lose either because that'd ruin his rep. The perfect outcome? A draw. Except he accidentally wins too easily. So he tries to drop his sword on purpose to end it, but Gurnak grabs it midair and charges again. If Gurnak hits him, Wayne will look weak like a cheater who faked a draw. So Wayne dodges to avoid that, but of course, the guy's cursed with bad luck. Gurnak can't stop himself, keeps running, and goes straight off the balcony. Dead. Just like that. Guess Wayne's mom's prayers really hit different. Anyway, Wayne arrests Gurnak's men, but one of them escapes to tell the Marquis what happened before passing out. When the Marquis hears his son's dead, he's furious, convinced Wayne assassinated him. Now he's got the perfect excuse to declare war on Natra. Worse yet, he suspects Elam's involved and part of a rebellion, so he vows to wipe her out too. Elam knows staying in Natra's dangerous, but she still insists protecting the Empire is more important than her own life. Meanwhile, Wayne's losing his mind. All he wanted was to marry Elam and Gurnak off so they'd both leave, and now he's stuck facing another war. Then Elam comes to see him, saying she's done. She's not chasing the throne anymore. All she wants now is to crush the rebellion. She begs him to help. Wayne tells her there's no way he's fighting Anquetal right now. They're broke after the war with Martin. The only option left is to trick the Marquis and make him confess to the rebellion himself. Wayne heads out with 5 officers to visit the Marquis. He tells him that Princess Elam already knows everything about his involvement in the rebellion. Wayne tries to convince him to pin all the blame on his dead son, make it look like Elam found out about his schemes and killed him for it. In return, all the Marquis has to do is hand over every bit of evidence about the rebellion. rebellion. Then Elam would just cut down his income, nothing more, instead of having him executed. Wayne keeps pressing him, tightening the noose until the Marquis starts to crack and says he needs some time to prepare himself before giving an answer. Wayne agrees, lets him have it, and leaves with his officers to the inn where they're staying. But on the way there, something feels off the roads too quiet. And then, out of nowhere, a group of rebels ambush them. Wayne immediately jumps into the fight, cutting through attackers, but he quickly realizes these guys aren't the Marquis's men at all. Then he senses it, this whole thing's a setup. Someone's coming for him. Just as he turns, a blade comes flying from a nearby house, but Wayne dodges it in time. That's when it clicks the attackers are Western spies who dragged the Marquis into the rebellion in the first place. Now they're trying to kill Wayne and destroy all the evidence before the truth comes out. But Wayne already saw this coming. He'd secretly sent Nanaki to the Marquis's castle, disguised as one of Gurinak's attendants, with orders to protect the Marquis from any assassination attempt. Back on the street, Wayne fights smart. He plays tricks, fakes movements, and outmaneuvers his enemy until he slices off the guy's arm and forces him to flee. But Wayne can't chase him, because at that moment he realizes the Marquis didn't stick to their plan. There's no choice now but to switch to Plan B retreat. The Marquis, meanwhile, walks right into Wayne's trap again. Furious, he chases after him with a small band of soldiers, not thinking straight, only to realize too late that Wayne and his men had set up an ambush. Then suddenly, a squad of Elam's troops surround him from the other side and drag him off to meet her. The Marquis starts sweating, and when he sees Wayne standing beside her, the panic doubles. He demands to know what Wayne's doing there, trying to accuse him of plotting an invasion. But the two of them keep twisting the knife, messing with his head, manipulating every word until they finally corner him into confessing to the whole rebellion plot exactly as they planned. With that, Lowell, Elam heads back to the Empire, her mission a success. She also withdraws her marriage proposal to Wayne, even though she really did like him since their academy days. Still, she's sure that in the end, Wayne's heart will always belong to Ninum, no matter what hardships they face because of where she came from. After the rebellion was exposed, the king of Kaffirine sent an invitation to Wayne to attend the Festival of Spirits, a major religious festival that's super important to Kaffirine. Wayne had no choice but to accept, though from the start he had that bad feeling, like something was bound to go wrong if they even made it there in one piece. As for Ninum, she had to dye her hair red to hide the fact that she's a Flom, since people in the West treat the Flom like slaves and look down on them. On their way to the festival, Wayne stops by the gold mine to make sure everything's running smoothly, and he's happy to find out that they've started searching for new resources too. He's glad, yeah, but also kind of frustrated, since Hegel, the head officer who used to handle all that, has retired, and without him, some nobles have started showing signs of rebellion. After checking the mine, Wayne keeps heading toward the festival, but suddenly, a group of soldiers disguised as bandits ambushes them. He figures they might be from Kaffirine or leftover troops from Marden, so he gambles on his guess and assumes they're from Kaffirine, meaning he heads straight into Marden's territory. Luckily, he was right. The remaining Marden forces show up and help him fight off the attackers until they retreat. After the fight, Wayne introduces himself and asks to meet their leader, Prince Helmut. A soldier named Zeno steps forward and tells him she'll speak on the prince's behalf, since he's bedridden, burned across his face ever since Kaffirine captured him. She asks Wayne why he came to their land, and when she finds out he was on his way to Kaffirine's festival, she loses it, threatens to kill him right there. Wayne just laughs and asks her what good that would do, since with their current forces, they can't even dream of facing Kaffirine. Then he offers to help her, tells her to send someone with him to the festival, someone who can talk to the big shots there and maybe find some support for their cause. Zeno doesn't trust him at first, but Wayne keeps his calm and says, "It's up to you to decide whether I'm worth trusting or not. Just give me a chance." Eventually, she agrees and decides to go with him herself. As they approach the capital, Wayne tells them he'll meet the king with a few guards, while Ninum will handle gathering intel, taking Zeno along with her for now. The next day, they reach the capital. On the way to the royal palace, Wayne bumps into one of Kaffirine's top generals, Leaftart. Wayne notices that one of his guards has the exact same injury as one of the bandits who attacked them before, which only deepens his suspicion about Kaffirine's involvement. Meanwhile, Ninum and Zeno are gathering intel when they spot Holoni, Marden's former minister of finance. Zeno loses it and tries to attack him, but Ninum stops her just in time and pulls her aside. That's when Zeno tells her the truth. Holoni betrayed Marden and was the reason Catherine attacked and why her entire family died. Back to Wayne, he finally meets the King of Catherine, who welcomes him warmly and introduces him to the leaders of their religious faction. The king even tries to nominate him to join their holy order. Of course, Wayne's just sitting there smiling while screaming internally, but later he realizes he could actually use this to his advantage. He figures that joining the order could help him make connections with the most influential figures in the Western lands, so he decides to meet them privately to build relationships. He even takes Zeno along, hoping she might find someone willing to support her people. Their first visit is to Caldamelia, a powerful woman in the order. Wayne lays it on thick, praising her for overcoming the religious ban on women in high positions and becoming director of teachings. She smiles and says she's heard about his war with Marden, how he freed his people from a tyrant king, and that his goals seem to align with theirs. She agrees to support his membership on one condition: he has to finish the job, destroy what's left of Marden's army, and publicly display their corpses as a warning to everyone. Wayne and Zeno are both stunned, speechless, and we later find out that Caldamelia is not acting out of politics. She's doing it for revenge against the rebel whose arm Wayne had cut off earlier. Meanwhile, Ninim's still tailing Leaftart on Wayne's orders, and she catches him secretly meeting Holoni. It's obvious now they're plotting something against Natra. Ninim rushes to tell Wayne everything she found out, and from that, Wayne figures out exactly what the king's been plotting all along. Because of the blood law, which ranks people based on their lineage, the king had to give loans to the members of the Holy Party since they were considered the sacred elite. So, his plan was to take advantage of the war between Marden and Natra, wipe them both out, and seize the gold mine for himself. But the plan backfired when Natra won the war and took over the mine. That's when the king set his eyes on Wayne, nominated him for the Holy Party just to trap him in debt and strengthen his own control. Later, while Wayne's discussing this with Ninim, Zeno barges in, saying she wants to go with him to meet the king. Wayne immediately refuses, thinking she might try to assassinate him, especially since she's lost all hope of finding support. But Zeno insists that's not what she's planning. All she wants is to form an alliance with Natra. She admits she doesn't really have a solid reason to convince him, but she feels like she'll find one if she meets the king in person. Wayne's still not buying it, but Zeno throws his own words back at him, reminding him that he's the one who said it's up to the other person to decide whether to trust or not. So he sighs and gives in, but makes her promise not to kill the king. Then he waves his hand confidently and says, "Only savages draw their swords during diplomatic talks. Remember that line, it'll matter later." They head to meet the king, and Wayne's surprised to find Holoni there serving as the king's aide. During their chat, the king casually tells Wayne that if he had a daughter, he would have married her off to him. Wayne plays along and says he'd heard rumors there was a princess once, but the king laughs and says she wasn't his daughter. Even though he gave her the best tutors, she turned out useless, and no child of his could ever be that disappointing. That's why, he says, he executed his wife for cheating on him. Wayne asks if he has any proof, but the king waves him off. Like, proof? What, you think I'm some commoner? The fact she couldn't give birth to a proper heir is proof enough of her betrayal. At that point, Wayne realizes the guy's completely lost it delusional, treating himself like some kind of god. And Wayne's now stuck wondering how to get out of this mess because he clearly can't form any alliance with a lunatic like that. But before he can think too long, the king crosses the line. He starts mocking the Flam and asks Wayne to lend him some of those filthy slaves from Natra just for fun, not for work, for sport. The king literally wanted to hunt them for entertainment and even had the nerve to invite Wayne to join. Wayne goes silent. The room freezes. Then, in a calm voice, he asks if the king wants to settle this now or later. The king scoffs. What kind of stupid question is that? Obviously now, he doesn't even finish the sentence before Wayne kicks him across the room, drops his guard in an instant, and orders his officer to lock down the place. He finishes the job right there. The king of Catherine is dead. Wayne hands Zeno a sword and tells her to take care of Holoni herself. Zeno's shocked it's the same man who told her that only savages draw their swords, but she doesn't hesitate. This was her chance for revenge, and she kills Holoni without holding back. After that, Wayne flees Catherine, but not before leaving them a little parting gift, something to slow them down from chasing him. He then decides to ally with Marden's forces, since they're already at war with Catherine after what just happened. He gathers documents from Holoni's office that prove General Leaftart's conspiracy to overthrow the king and take the throne. Wayne leaks them publicly to turn the people against him. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Caldamelia, the same holy woman from before, seems weirdly pleased with all this. Everything's going exactly according to her plan. She even sends Wayne a message, warning him that Natra's rebels have risen up, demanding his head. To make things worse, a rockslide blocks the mountain pass, cutting off the main road. It'll take 10 days to reopen it, and if Wayne waits that long, the rebels will seize Natra. But Wayne, being Wayne, gets an idea. He decides to turn the whole situation in his favor. He lures the Caphorine troops that are chasing him straight toward the Natra rebels, blocking the border, then traps them from behind, forcing the two sides to fight each other. Turns out this was all part of his plan, with Hegel, who'd retired temporarily to help stage this setup. Once the chaos breaks out, Hegel shows up with Natra's army, wipes out both the rebels and the pursuers, and personally takes down Leaftart. Just like that, Wayne eliminates every threat around him and even helps Marden reclaim its capital. When he finally returns home, he learns the shocking truth. Zeno is actually Princess Helmet herself. She'd been hiding her identity because no one outside the royal family knew she was a girl. That's why she disguised herself as a soldier named Zeno. Her father had hated how she acted, so he exiled her to a remote royal villa, which is the only reason she survived when the rest of her family was killed during Caphorine's invasion. Wayne's not surprised though, he'd already figured it out long ago. Meanwhile, the leader of the defeated rebels escapes to Caldamelia and reports everything. She's frustrated they failed, but Caldamelia just smiles and says it's fine. They'll come up with new plans to destroy the continent. After things settle down, Zeno, now Princess Helmet, again officially signs a treaty with Wayne, declaring Marden an allied state under Natra's protection. Wayne's thrilled at first, thinking he's finally gained a fortress in the west, just like he dreamed, until Zeno asks him to take responsibility for ruling Marden himself, since she's still young and inexperienced in politics. Wayne freezes, looks around for help. Everyone's nodding in agreement. No way out. And just like that, our poor Wayne collapses in despair, cursing his luck yet again. So, we start off at the Empire, where preparations are underway for the Imperial Summit, a huge event meant to decide the next heir to the throne. To mark the occasion, they're throwing a grand ceremony in Miltar's city, and several nations have been invited to attend. Princess Lowelmina, Elm decides she'll personally welcome Wayne upon his arrival, wanting to show just how much she values her alliance with Natra. But truth be told, she's also excited to see Wayne's grumpy face again after all that happened between them. Except, when she goes to greet him, she's shocked to find Flavia there instead. So what happened? Let's rewind a bit. Back in Natra, Wayne's in a meeting with his advisors, telling them about the Empire's upcoming anniversary celebration, the one commemorating the Empire's founding. He asks whether he should attend, and opinions are split. On one hand, all the big political figures will be there, but on the other, it's risky for him to leave Natra so soon after the recent war. Wayne sighs, thinking the smartest move is not to go that way. He can avoid both the political traps and Elm's constant attempts to recruit him to her side. Then he glances over and catches Flavia looking at him. He smirks and gives her a little nod, like, guess that means more time for you and me if I stay, huh? Of course, Flavia completely misunderstands that look, and before he knows it, she volunteers to go in his place. And that's how we end up with Flavia and Ninum traveling to the Empire instead. On the way, Ninum updates Flavia on the latest political gossip. Elm's popularity in the Empire has skyrocketed ever since she helped prevent a major war. She's even formed her own political faction, one that might someday support her claim to the throne. But Elm hasn't made any moves toward that yet, probably to avoid stirring up even more trouble inside the Empire. Instead, she's focused on gathering nobles who actually care about the Empire's stability, even though, compared to her brothers, her faction is pretty weak in terms of military or noble power. Still, Elm's been smart about it, marketing herself as the only one who truly cares about the Empire's future, making anyone who opposes her look like the villain. When the ceremony starts, Elm decides to introduce Flavia to her three brothers, the princes: Manfred, the youngest, known for being sly and cunning; Bardelos, the middle brother, famous for his strength and military skill; Demetrio, the eldest, and easily the most arrogant of the three. Demetrio immediately starts insulting Natra, saying they must think little of the Empire if they sent their little princess instead of their prince. Elm quickly cuts him off, warning him he's insulting their guest by saying that. But before things can calm down, the other brothers jump in, each trying to win Flavia's favor for their own agendas. Ninum quietly pulls Flavia aside and warns her not to get dragged into their family drama, better to stay out of it completely. Ninim leaves her to rest a bit and goes to talk with Elm, who tries to negotiate. She offers to share information about the upcoming Imperial Succession Summit in exchange for Natra's public support. But of course, Wayne, the genius that he is, had already predicted this exact move and instructed Ninum to reject any deal from Elm. So when Ninim politely refuses, Elm has no choice but to return to her brothers and prepare for the succession meeting that will decide the next emperor. Meanwhile, despite doing her best, Flavia feels like she's still not living up to Wayne's standards. Wanting to prove she's more than just the cute little princess, she goes out to tour the city with the mayor, visiting the People's Council and talking to the citizens to study how they debate and reason, trying to understand how real diplomacy works. Later, Elm drops by to visit Flavia and Ninim, wanting to discuss her tense meeting with her brothers. But suddenly, Prince Demetrio himself shows up. He boldly announces that he wants to marry Flavia, claiming it'll strengthen ties between Natra and the Empire. But Ninum and Flavia immediately see through him. There's no way this guy's proposal is that innocent. So Flavia gives a calm, diplomatic answer, saying she'll relay his offer to Natra's government and they'll respond officially. Demetrio doesn't like that one bit, he snaps, insisting there's no need for discussion, that the marriage is clearly in everyone's best interest. In truth, Demetrio just hates Wayne, and marrying Flavia is his twisted way of getting revenge, of humiliating him through his sister. But Flavia, bless her, doesn't flinch. She looks him straight in the eye and tells him that royal marriages are matters of state, not something a young, inexperienced princess like her can decide on a whim. That's when Demetrio loses it, completely threatening that once he becomes emperor, he won't go easy on Natra. He leans in, trying to intimidate her further. But before he can finish his threat, Wayne finally arrives, fresh from his work in the Empire. Wayne figures out what's going on from Ninim's secret letter, and he instantly realizes he's arrived at the worst possible time. Now, he has to deal with Demetrio's marriage proposal head on. But instead of reacting emotionally like Demetrio, Wayne plays it smart. He smoothly flips the situation by involving Lowell Mina, Elm, in his plan, saying that this would actually be a great opportunity to strengthen the relationship between their nations, since, his own engagement to Elm had been postponed until things settled down politically. Demetrio loses his temper immediately, yelling at his sister that she can't just decide something like that on her own. But Elm keeps her cool and says it's in the best interest of the Empire, and since there's no emperor on the throne right now, she's completely free to decide for herself. Just like that, she totally wrecks Demetrio's plan, leaving him cornered and furious. Then Ninim jumps in and adds, there's one little problem. There's a law that forbids members of the royal family from marrying within the same bloodline. Of course, that was a total bluff. There's no such law at all. But it works. It gives Wayne the perfect excuse to dodge the situation. He then calmly suggests they meet again the next day to continue the discussion. Still, even though the political marriage talk was diffused for now, the whole idea was far from over. Wayne knew there was no way he'd ever let Demetrio marry his sister, not unless the guy somehow united the entire continent under peace, or something impossible like that. But that wasn't his only headache. Wayne was also worried about Caldemilla and her faction. They'd been quietly moving behind the scenes, clearly plotting something big. And with Miltar's recently joining the Empire, he knew things were about to explode. While he's talking to Ninim about all this, Wayne suddenly loses balance, nearly collapsing, but reassures her it's nothing serious, just lack of sleep. Later, he sneaks out to meet Elm in secret. She vents her frustration, telling him that despite all her efforts, no one even considers her a serious candidate for the throne. She asks what he thinks of her, and he bluntly tells her she's been acting foolish, but adds that he doesn't mind helping her out anyway. Of course, Elm immediately takes advantage of that and decides to drag him into her epic struggle for the throne, whether he likes it or not. Meanwhile, Manfred, the youngest prince, overhears news of Wayne's meeting with Demetrio and decides to use the chance to kill him. He plans to poison Wayne's tea during their next meeting, but Wayne, being sharp as ever, gets suspicious when the tea arrives. He calmly orders the maid who prepared it to drink it first. She hesitates, then tries to run. Demetrio, watching all this, bursts out laughing. Oh, come on, you're seriously afraid of a cup of tea? I can't believe people actually admire such a coward. Then, to mock him, he grabs the cup and downs it in one gulp. See? Nothing wrong with... He doesn't even finish the sentence sentence before collapsing to the floor. They manage to save him, barely, and he's rushed back to his quarters for treatment. But after the incident, Wayne is immediately detained for questioning. Manfred and Bardalos both deny any involvement, convincing everyone that the poisoning must have been part of a Miltars conspiracy, and soon, Miltars is surrounded by Imperial troops. Wayne realizes the situation is spiraling out of control. They need to escape fast. But of course, his terrible luck strikes again. He gets word that a massive army flying the Levitian banner is marching toward Western Miltars. That means there's no way to keep the peace now. If things continue, the citizens of Miltars will rise up and a full-scale war will break out. The pressure finally hits Wayne. He loses consciousness while trying to think of a way out of the disaster. Meanwhile, Flavia, seeing how everything's falling apart, decides she can't just sit and watch. She steps up, goes straight to the People's Council, which is in chaos, and does her best to calm them with a strong, heartfelt speech. At that moment, Wayne regains consciousness and immediately sees an opportunity. He decides to use his sister's influence over the people. He instructs her to rally the citizens and lead them herself not to fight, but to evacuate and protect the city together. The Imperial army is stunned. They suddenly find themselves facing 30,000 determined civilians acting in perfect coordination. At the same time, the Levitian forces are thrown into chaos too, because now they have to supply and manage 30,000 people to keep their plan going, something they were never prepared for. Wayne goes to speak with Caldamilla and the King of Sangit, who has been assisting her and providing troops. He explains that he is representing Miltars and requests their help in safely evacuating the citizens from the city. He then asks about their battle plan. When he finds out they intend to fight the prince's armies to liberate the city, he tells them not to intervene. It would be impossible for them to succeed. He informs them that he will reclaim the city himself and offers to buy their surplus supplies at 3 times their original price. Additionally, he promises to build a memorial in the city to honor them as a gesture of thanks. In other words, he offers them money and fame in exchange for handing over their supplies and returning home. Caldamilla is thrilled. She hadn't expected Wayne to take such a bold step, but she wants to test him, play with him a little, see his frustration and reactions, then tend to his injuries afterward. The King of Sangit lets her get lost in her daydreams and suddenly tells Wayne that he accepts the offer. Caldamilla is shocked and reminds him that she's in charge of decisions like this as the director of education. Wayne calmly asserts that he is responsible for the army and decided to agree. He explains that he likely prepared a battalion from Miltar's citizens to exhaust the prince's forces and force them into negotiations. Because of this, he refuses to fall into the trap of Caldamilla's unpredictable behavior. She reluctantly agrees to sell the supplies, but insists on staying with her troops in the city until they confirm that Miltars is fully secure. Wayne agrees to the arrangement. Armed Miltars citizens move toward the prince's forces. Despite the risk, Wayne is confident the princes won't fight. They know the citizens are the source of their wealth. The more they kill, the less they gain. Additionally, the Levitian army is on standby in case of betrayal or unforeseen events. This marks the final step in Wayne's plan. He then instructs Elm to hold a meeting with the princes and informs them that Demetrio himself was behind the assassination attempt. Wayne tries to convince them that if they act without care, Miltar's reputation will be damaged. With Bardalos and Manfred weakened, Demetrio could return, attack, seize Miltars, and claim the throne, and he would win. Elm points out that Demetrio clearly aimed to sabotage the Imperial summit, which is why he resisted negotiations and pressured them to surrender the throne. Even the mayor of Miltars reassures the princes that he understands everything that happened and is willing to compensate for losses while cutting all future ties with Demetrio. Although Manfred and Bardalos know this isn't entirely true, they are just framing Demetrio in his absence, they have no choice but to accept the mayor's offer. If they refused, they would risk internal conflict, leaving Demetrio as the only beneficiary. Wayne's plan succeeds. Elm benefits as well, and Miltars now supports her. Wayne's motivation becomes clear. He helped Miltars because Flavia shone in the city. He risked his own life and the city's fate just to give her a sense of victory and pride. Luck begins to favor Wayne. Upon returning to Natra, he discovers that the kingdom's economic situation is improving steadily. If trends continue, the kingdom's value will rise, and Wayne abandons the idea of selling it, choosing instead to maximize his current position. Martin's situation also improves. After pledging loyalty to Natra, they begin importing goods from the Eastern Empire and exporting them to foreign nations as Natra products. Western countries countries hostile to the Empire see these as genuine Natra goods and refuse imports from the Empire. Wayne is pleased with his clever strategy, but Ninum warns him that Martin's economy could rival the Empire's in less than 10 years. She advises him to find another trade partner to secure Natra's long-term position. While discussing this, a Sanjit envoy arrives, inviting Wayne to a celebration in their kingdom. Wayne devises a brilliant plan. He decides to visit Martin on his way to ensure continued cooperation with Natra. He is aware that Martin may use this opportunity to propose marriage to Zeno, but he is prepared to avoid it, and, as usual, he is even excited by the challenge. However, his excitement fades when he meets Zeno. She discusses Martin's problems with Sangit and doubts about their trade goods origin. She doesn't even hint at marriage. Wayne tells himself she is waiting for the right moment and will likely bring it up during their tour of the city the next day. The next day, Zeno disguises herself in a soldier's uniform and joins Wayne on the tour as one of her own troops rather than as the Marquis. This doesn't discourage Wayne. He suspects she's doing this to subtly hint at marriage. After the tour, she talks with him about her relationship with her people and asks why he stays distant. Wayne explains that if people are revered solely because of their noble or royal bloodlines, it means they are honored from birth. But if you trace their lineage, many nobles and kings were actually commoners who gained respect due to intelligence, strength, or even sheer luck. This means any commoner, no matter how lowly, could one day become a king. Regarding his distance from the people, Wayne explains that Natra has 800,000 citizens, many of whom are likely unknown or potential royal observers, so he must always be cautious. Zeno is surprised by Wayne's depth of thought, admitting she didn't expect someone to be so insightful. Wayne adds that he anticipated a marriage proposal, but feels he's been playing a trick on himself all along. Zeno responds submissively, saying that the Marquess, herself, probably isn't thinking about marriage because she's busy with state affairs. Wayne argues that she would find peace if she married him. Zeno admits that is true, but perhaps only for a superficial reason, maybe because he isn't the type she wants, for example. The truth is, Zeno already believes Wayne is an unattainable great man and feels she cannot be queen to someone like him. So, she doesn't propose marriage, even though it would strengthen her rule over Martin. Wayne's assistant reassures Zeno that they will support her, and she feels relieved. Suddenly, Sergais, the Prime Minister of Delonio, arrives and requests a meeting with her. Sergais personally informs Zeno again that he doubts the origin of the goods being exported to them. When he notices her denial, he threatens to speak directly with Wayne. Wayne then arrives himself and asks about the problem. Sergais requests that they stop exporting imperial goods to the west through Natra, as the Empire is considered a sworn enemy of their religion. Wayne explains that the goods are actually made in Natra, but Sergais doesn't believe him, insisting that the goods have begun to spread widely. Wayne counters, if that is true, it means the barbarian faction within the Empire managed to produce items that satisfy refined Western tastes. Sergais realizes he's in trouble and tries to convince Wayne that it's not just a matter of goods. The Empire is selling items to travelers passing through Martin, which is forbidden and offensive to their faith. Wayne dismisses him, saying he's merely a subordinate and has no right to complain or question Leviathan on their behalf. Sergais becomes angry and decides to find a solution without Wayne, but Wayne warns him that one day he will regret his actions. Wayne continues on to the kingdom of Sanjit and meets King Gruier, who attempts to subtly suggest friendly relations between their nations. Wayne decides to seize the opportunity to establish a trade alliance, exporting goods to the west due to his conflict with Delonio. He also sees a chance to unite their forces and potentially turn against Delonio to divide and control it effectively, killing two birds with one stone. Wayne chooses the welcome banquet as the moment to propose his idea to the king. During the banquet, he meets the king's daughter Tulsila and plans to bring her onto his side. However, his plan begins to unravel as soon as he sees the delicious dishes presented. He turns into a food enthusiast and becomes distracted, deciding to learn more about their cuisine and bring it to Natra. He tries to return to his main goal, but the truth is, the food completely distracts him. Wayne becomes so absorbed in eating that his stomach hurts, and he can't discuss anything productive with the king, who strangely also avoids serious conversation. Wayne decides to speak with the king the next day. Meanwhile, Sergais sends a message to Zeno, informing her that they want to reclaim Mardinian lands previously loaned to Martin. Zeno refuses. This isn't the only problem. Despite Wayne's repeated attempts to speak speak with King Gruier, the king avoids him. Since Wayne isn't seeking an alliance, it seems the only reason for the invitation was assassination. He dismisses this possibility, as there were many chances to assassinate him, yet no attempt was made. Wayne suspects that King Gruier is exploiting his absence and planning an attack on Natra. He prepares to return immediately, but at that very moment, the king requests a meeting. Wayne remains cautious and signals Nynum to prepare to take the king hostage and escape if necessary. However, for the third time, Gruier surprises them. He instructs Nynum to sit in a chair, treating her not as a servant, and tells Wayne he isn't concerned with trivial matters about peasants. He believes they are followers of demons and sees Leviathan's teachings as mere words on paper. He also believes all humans are equal, and it's not white hair or red eyes that distinguish them. Wayne is impressed by the king's thinking and offers him an alliance, requesting a prompt response since he needs to return to Natra immediately. Wayne is shocked for the third time when the king easily agrees to the alliance, allowing him to return to Natra without further issues. What Wayne doesn't know is that this was just a performance by Gruier. Upon returning to Natra, he discovers that Delonio has attacked the nearby Mardinian region, while Sanjit has begun a siege and declared war. Gruier orchestrated this because he enjoys battles and recognized Wayne's unmatched skill during Milters. He wanted to challenge him directly. Wayne seeks a solution without war and summons Zeno. She apologizes, blaming herself for provoking Delonio, explaining that Sanjit entered the war because they were threatening their ally Delonio. The only solution is to repair relations with Delonio, removing any justification for Sanjit's attack. She informs Wayne that she has dispatched troops to arrange a meeting with Sergeis. Though reconciliation is difficult, she has an idea that could help. Wayne trusts her as their plans align. Wayne begins executing his plan. He sends a group of his troops to ambush King Gruier in an assassination attempt. At the same time, he meets with Sergeis and Zeno to try to resolve the conflict peacefully. Sergeis tells them he already tried negotiating before, but nobody paid attention. He requested that the Sanjit forces return the lands under Mardinian control, leaving no need for further negotiation. Zeno tries to warn him that if Sanjit wins, their power will grow and pose a threat. She even tempts him, offering to concede a small piece of land even though it would hurt their economy. To everyone's surprise, Sergeis rejects her offer, confident that Sanjit will win, reclaim the land, and donate it to Leviathan, securing membership in the elite party. Wayne steps in and urges him to attack Sanjit troops, asking Sergeis what would force him to do so. Wayne explains, if the innocent civilians die or are displaced, action is necessary. Sergeis says he's willing to take in the refugees fleeing from Natra. Wayne's plan begins to succeed as Sergeis says, "Good, we'll send you 800,000 refugees." Sergeis is shocked, saying they are not prepared for that number. Wayne replies calmly, "Send them anyway." Sergeis becomes angry, insisting he'll have to use military force, which would kill tens of thousands before they even arrive. Wayne questions if Sergeis' army could handle it. He explains that the yellow dye in the clothing they export is made from a highly toxic flower, which penetrates the body slowly and kills anyone who touches it. As a result, the Delonio population will begin to collapse and die at a young age. Panic and misinformation will spread. People will flee the kingdom, and it will be impossible for the army to stop them. The 800,000 Natrons will arrive, consume the resources, and halt work in the cities. The poor of Delonio will expel the Natrons, causing chaos. The Natrons will resist, collapsing the system, spreading violence, and within days, neighboring kingdoms will invade under the pretext of protecting the refugees, ultimately destroying Delonio, a carefully planned project. Even though the dye isn't truly poisonous, Wayne relied on intimidation and pressure. Zeno is impressed by Wayne's boldness. No one else would threaten a kingdom to defeat their enemy. Sergeis protests, saying it's impossible to release 800,000 refugees into Delonio. Wayne calmly responds, he managed 30,000 before, and his sister orchestrated that. This time, he leaves a message to unleash the Natrans if anyone is harmed. The report of Natra's defeat against Sanjit arrives, showing they are only hours from Natra, and Sergeis Sergei's realizes Wayne's plan will truly succeed. Wayne presents the final solution. He provides an antidote to the poison on the condition that Delonio forces attack Sanjit from the rear, since Natra's army is regrouping to face Sanjit again. Sergei agrees and sends his forces at the right moment. Sanjit's army becomes trapped from both sides, and their only escape is north. King Gruyere refuses, claiming it's a foolish plan and insisting they attack Delonio directly, hoping the armies will clash with Natra's forces, allowing him to kill the generals and win. Fortunately, he doesn't manage to execute this plan. Wayne, along with Hegel and the army commander, is suddenly attacked by Ninum, who defeats him, declaring Natra victorious. King Gruyere is temporarily imprisoned until his fate is decided. In a strange twist, Wayne decides to release him on the condition of forming an alliance. Gruyere is surprised. Sergeis objects strongly. Wayne points out that Sergeis has lost political authority after betraying Songit, leaving no justification for refusal. Gruyere hesitates, but ultimately agrees, with one condition. Wayne must reveal the truth about the beast inside him, his desires and goals. Wayne reveals all his ambitions. Gruyere is shocked, feeling Wayne might be lying. Wayne counters, saying he can't know the truth if he dies, so the only solution is to stay alive. Gruyere laughs, admires Wayne's intellect, and returns to his kingdom. As a result, trade in Natra declines, the era of luxury ends, and Wayne's dreams of a comfortable life evaporate. He returns to work, reclaiming his role as the ambitious hero who once sought to sell his kingdom and disappear. That was the story of Wayne the Ambitious. If you enjoyed the story, leave me your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to support your brother with a like and a comment, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to get all the latest updates. All right, bye.